The Galactic Council overstepped. Now humanity's done playing nice. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the massive observation deck, staring out at the swirling nebula that surrounded Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Confederation. Her hands were clenched so tight behind her back that her knuckles had gone white 12 years. She had been Earth's representative to this so-called alliance. 12 years of swallowing her pride and watching her people get treated like second-class citizens. 12 years of hearing the same condescending speeches about how humans were too young, too violent, too unpredictable to be trusted with real responsibility. Today that was going to change. The emergency session had been called after what the Confederation was calling the Terra incident. But Sarah knew better. It wasn't an incident. It was a declaration of war. The Zephyrians had blockaded 3 human agricultural worlds, cutting off food supplies to over 5 million colonists. When Earth had protested, the response had been swift and brutal. Confederation peacekeepers had bombed the orbital defense platforms around New Geneva, killing 12,000 humans in what they called a proportional response to human aggression. The Great Council chamber buzzed with alien voices, speaking in dozens of languages. Sarah recognized most of them after 12 years. She had learned to understand the clicking of the Krextai, the harmonic tones of the Velthari, the guttural growls of the Bruton. But today she wasn't interested in translation. Today she was interested in making herself perfectly clear. High Counselor Zex High of the Zephyrian Collective floated at the center of the chamber, his translucent blue form rippling with what humans had learned to recognize as smugness. The Zephyrians were one of the 3 founding species of the Confederation, along with the insectoid hive minds of the Krextai and the crystalline Velthari. They had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and they never let anyone forget it. The human representative will address the council. Zex High's voice echoed through the chamber, with that particular tone that made Sarah's skin crawl. It was the voice of someone talking to a misbehaving child. Sarah stepped forward into the speaking circle. The chamber fell silent as 2,000 alien eyes focused on her. She had given speeches here before, passionate pleas for fair treatment for human colonies, reasoned arguments about trade agreements, polite requests for representation in Confederation military commands. Every single time she had been patted on the head and told to be patient, that humans would earn their place eventually. Honored counselors, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. I stand before you today not as a supplicant, but as the voice of humanity, and humanity has something to say. A ripple of what might have been amusement went through the chamber. High Counselor Krixatal of the Krextai clicked his mandibles in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a chuckle. The 6-foot-tall insect's compound eyes glittered with malicious humor. Indeed, human, what does your young species wish to tell its elders? Perhaps you come to apologize for the illegal military buildup around your core worlds. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Illegal military buildup. They meant the orbital defense platforms Earth had built after the 5th pirate attack this year, platforms that had been approved by the Confederation's own defense committee, until suddenly they weren't. No, Counselor Krixatal, I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to deliver a message from the United Earth Alliance, and that message is simple. We're done. The chamber erupted in noise, aliens chittering, clicking, and harmonizing their confusion and outrage. High Counselor Velnara of the Velthari resonated, a sound like crystal bells that hurt human ears. It was their way of expressing displeasure. Done with what, human child? Zex High's form darkened to a deeper blue. Done with your responsibilities to the Confederation? Done with civilization itself? Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile at all. Done pretending we need your permission to defend ourselves. Done accepting scraps from your table. Done being grateful for the privilege of being treated like garbage. She activated her wrist communicator, and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber star charts. Fleet movement, supply lines, things the Confederation thought were secret. For 12 years you've told us we were too aggressive, too militaristic to be trusted with real power. Well, let me show you what humans do when we're actually trying to be militaristic. The display showed the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt around Sol, massive construction facilities that had been building in secret for the past 5 years. While Earth's official fleet consisted of maybe 50 patrol vessels, the real fleet numbered in the thousands. High Counselor Zex High's form flickered with shock. This is impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected such construction. Your intelligence services did detect it, Sarah replied calmly. We've been feeding them false information for 3 years. Every report, every surveillance sweep, every spy you sent to our systems saw exactly what we wanted them to see. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humans could fool Confederation intelligence so completely, what else were they hiding? Admiral Thexivore of the Bruthan hegemony roared his species' version of outrage. The 7-foot-tall reptilian scales shifted to a deep red color. You dare deceive the Confederation human. This is an act of war. Sarah's smile got wider. No, Admiral, this is us telling you that we don't care what you call it anymore. For 12 years, we played by your rules, followed your laws, accepted your judgment about what we could and couldn't do to protect our people. She gestured to the holographic display, and it shifted to show the recent attacks on human colonies. Your Zephyrian friends blockaded our agricultural worlds. Your Krexatai allies allowed pirates to raid our shipping lanes. Your own Bruthan hegemony refused to respond when raiders attacked our outer colonies because, quote, humans must learn to defend themselves. The chamber was dead silent now. Every alien representative was staring at the evidence of their own species' actions laid bare for everyone to see. So we learned, Sarah continued, her voice getting harder. We learned that the only beings we can trust to protect human lives are humans. We learned that your laws only apply when it's convenient for you. We learned that no matter how hard we try to fit in, you'll always see us as inferior. High Counselor Velnara's crystalline form rang with harmonic discord. Human Sarah, you speak of serious accusations. The Confederation has always treated all species with fairness and respect. Sarah laughed and the sound echoed strangely in the vast chamber. Fairness, Counselor, let me tell you about fairness. When the Draxan Syndicate attacked New Marseille, you told us we couldn't retaliate because it would destabilize the region when Zephyrian corporations dumped toxic waste in our star systems. You said it was an unfortunate accident when our trade ships were seized by Bruthan Customs. You said we should be more careful about following regulations. The display shifted again, showing classified Confederation documents, communications between council members, discussing how to keep humanity manageable, how to ensure human colonies never became too independent or too powerful. But when we started building our own defenses, suddenly we were being aggressive when we stopped asking permission for every little decision. Suddenly we were being uncooperative when we refused to let your corporations strip mine our worlds. Suddenly we were being unreasonable. High Counselor Zex High's form was now pulsing with agitation. These documents, how did you obtain classified Confederation files? The same way we obtained the invasion plans, Sarah said casually. The words hit the chamber like a bomb. Every alien representative started talking at once, their voices creating a cacophony of confusion and panic. Sarah waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Oh yes, we know about Operation Sunset, the Joint Confederation Task Force being assembled to restore order to human space. We know about the planned occupation of Earth. We know about the re-education camps you want to build for human children who show too much independence. Admiral Thexivore slammed his clawed hand on his speaking platform. Lies, human propaganda designed to turn the Council against itself. Sarah's communicator chimed, and she activated another holographic display. This one showing Confederation military assets moving toward human space. Propaganda, Admiral, then explain why the 7th Fleet is currently 3 days out from the Sol system. Explain why Zephyrian battle groups are positioning around our outer colonies. Explain why Krexatai hive ships are massing near our trade routes. The evidence was overwhelming. Classified documents, fleet movements, communication intercepts, everything the Confederation had tried to keep secret was laid bare for everyone to see. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sarah continued. Create a crisis that justifies intervention. Use humanity's refusal to submit as proof that we're dangerous to galactic peace, then move in with overwhelming force to restore order, and coincidentally place human space under direct Confederation control. High Counselor Krixatal's mandibles clicked rapidly. Even if these allegations were true, human, what do you propose to do about it? Your species has perhaps 100 ships. We have tens of thousands. Sarah's smile became predatory. Counselor, let me introduce you to the concept of human mathematics. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing real-time sensor data from across the galaxy. Human ships were decloaking everywhere around Confederation military bases, around alien homeworlds, around the very space station where the Council was meeting. You assumed our total fleet strength based on what you could see, Sarah explained. That was your first mistake. Humans don't like to show all their cards at once. Every ship you detected, every base you cataloged, every weapon you counted, that was maybe 10% of our actual capability. The numbers on the display were staggering. 15,000 human warships had just revealed themselves simultaneously across Confederation space, each one equipped with technology the aliens had never seen before. Your second mistake was assuming we were alone, Sarah continued. Counselors, I'd like you to meet some friends of ours. New ships appeared on the display vessels from species the Confederation had never heard of. The Terran Alliance had been busy over the past 5 years, making contact with civilizations beyond Confederation space civilizations that had their own reasons for disliking the Galactic government. The Nexari Republic sends their regards, Sarah said as sleek, silver ships appeared near Zephyrian space. They remember how the Confederation destroyed their first colony ships 2 centuries ago. The Kethmaran Empire also wanted to attend this meeting. They have some questions about those missing exploration fleets from 50 years ago. The chamber was in chaos. Aliens were screaming into communicators trying to contact their home fleets, trying to understand how they had been so completely outmaneuvered. In a matter of minutes, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. High Counselor Zexhi's form was flickering rapidly. Human Sarah, what do you want? Sarah looked around the chamber at the aliens who had spent 12 years treating her people like children, at the beings who had planned to enslave humanity while pretending to be their allies. What do we want, Counselor? We want you to pack up your invasion fleets and go home. We want you to return every human ship you've seized, every human citizen you've imprisoned, every human world you've claimed for the Confederation. We want you to leave us alone. And if we refuse, Admiral Thexivore growled. Sarah's expression didn't change. Then you'll discover why evolution made humans the apex predators on their world, and why that was very, very bad news for everything else that lived there. The display showed weapons signatures from the human fleet power readings that made even Bruton dreadnoughts look like toys by comparison. For 12 years, you've complained that humans are too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous, Sarah continued. You haven't seen anything yet, counselors. We've been on our best behavior this whole time, trying to be the kind of neighbors you said you wanted. She paused and looked directly at each of the high counselors in turn. But you didn't want good neighbors. You wanted servants, and humanity is fresh out of servants. The silence in the chamber stretched for what felt like hours. Finally, High Counselor Valnera's crystalline form chimed softly. Human Sarah, you are making a terrible mistake. The Confederation has maintained peace in this galaxy for 3 millennia. Without us, there will be chaos, war, suffering beyond imagination. Sarah nodded slowly. You're probably right, Counselor. There probably will be chaos, there probably will be war. But here's the thing about humans, we'd rather die free than live as slaves. And if chaos is the price of freedom, then we'll pay it. She started walking toward the exit, but stopped at the edge of the speaking circle. Oh, and counselors, one more thing. Those invasion fleets you have moving toward human space. I'd turn them around if I were you, because if even one Confederation ship enters human space without permission, we'll consider it an act of war. And trust me, you really don't want to find out what humans are like when we stop playing nice. Sarah walked out of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence behind her. She could hear aliens talking frantically, some demanding immediate military action, others counseling caution, a few even suggesting negotiation. 6 hours later, the first Confederation fleet turned around. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching Zephyrian battlecruisers execute a hasty withdrawal from the edge of the Sol system around him. His bridge crew was trying very hard not to smile too obviously. Sir, his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, called out, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Put it through, Webb ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Zikoran of the Zephyrian Navy. The alien's translucent form was a sickly yellow color, indicating fear or stress. Human Admiral, I am Admiral Zikoran, commanding the Confederation's 7th Fleet. I wish to inform you that our current position is merely a training exercise. We have no hostile intent toward human space. Webb nodded calmly. Admiral Zexcorin, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that your training exercise happens to be taking place 3 light years from Earth, right after the Confederation voted to intervene in human space. The Zephyrian's form flickered. Human Admiral, there seems to be some misunderstanding. The Confederation has no plans to intervene in human affairs. That's good to hear, Admiral, Webb replied, because if there had been such plans and if your fleet was here to implement them, I'd have to do something about it, and that would be unfortunate for everyone involved. To emphasize his point, Webb had his tactical officer light up the Zephyrian ships. With targeting lasers, suddenly every alien vessel found itself painted by human weapon systems they hadn't even known were there. We will be withdrawing to conduct our exercises elsewhere, Admiral Zexcorin said quickly. Please convey our apologies to Earth for any misunderstanding. The transmission ended, and Webb watched as the Zephyrian fleet jumped to hyperspace. Within minutes they were gone. Sir, Commander Park said, we're getting reports from across human space. Confederation fleets are withdrawing from all our systems. Webb smiled. Signal Fleet Command, tell them Phase 1 is complete. It's time for Phase 2. Phase 2 was what made Sarah Chen's ultimatum more than just empty words. While the Confederation had been focused on their invasion plans, humanity had been building something much more dangerous than warships. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the command center of the Prometheus station, hidden deep inside the asteroid belt around Alpha Centauri. Around her, the most brilliant human minds were putting the finishing touches on humanity's greatest scientific achievement. Director, we're ready for the first test, her assistant Dr. James Liu announced. Elena looked at the massive device that filled the center of the station. It didn't look like much, just a series of crystalline matrices and quantum field generators. But this machine would change everything. Are you sure about the calculations, James? If we're wrong, this could destroy half the solar system. James smiled nervously. The math checks out, Director, and we've run 10,000 simulations. If this works, we won't need to fight the Confederation. We can just make them irrelevant. Elena took a deep breath. Initiate the test. The device hummed to life, energy readings spiked across every sensor in the system, and then reality twisted the space around the device, folded in on itself, creating a perfect sphere of absolute nothingness. Confirmed, Director, we have a stable artificial black hole containment is holding. Elena stared at the impossible sight, a miniature black hole held in place by human technology. And the applications. Unlimited energy, faster than light travel, without hyperlanes, defensive barriers, that can stop anything, even time dilation if we need it. Director, we've just made every other species in the galaxy obsolete. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Confederation capital, emergency sessions were being held in every government building as the implications of humanity's revelations sank in. High Counselor HFY floated in his private chambers, reviewing the intelligence reports that kept flooding in. Human technology was advancing at an impossible rate. They were building things that violated known physics, using materials that shouldn't exist. A communication request chimed on his personal device. The caller ID made his form ripple with surprise. It was from someone he hadn't spoken to in decades. Brother! The voice belonged to Zexcorin, a Zephyrian scientist who had been studying human development for years. We need to talk. Zexcorin, I cannot speak with you now. There is a crisis. The humans have threatened the entire Confederation. That's exactly what I'm calling about, brother. I've been studying human psychological profiles for 12 years. I tried to warn the Council, but nobody would listen. Zexhi's form darkened. Warn them about what? About what happens when you corner a human brother. They're not like us. They're not rational. They don't calculate odds and surrender when the math doesn't work out. Humans have this concept they call dying on your feet. It means they would rather lose everything fighting than accept defeat. They cannot defeat the combined fleets of the Confederation even with their secret weapons. They are one species against thousands. Zexcorin's voice carried a note of desperate urgency. Brother, you're not listening. They don't care if they can't win. They'll fight anyway, and they'll take as many of us with them as they can. A human who thinks they're going to die becomes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The implications hit Zexhi like a physical blow. You're saying they would commit species suicide rather than surrender. I'm saying they already have, brother. The moment they revealed their fleet's strength, they committed to war. They're not bluffing. They're not posturing. They've already decided they'd rather be dead than slaves. Zexhai felt his form begin to destabilize with shock. Then what do? We give them what they want, brother. We back down. We let them go. We pretend this never happened because the alternative is a war that destroys both sides. But it was already too late. The wheels of military bureaucracy were already in motion across Confederation space fleets. We're mobilizing armies. We're being activated. Weapons of mass destruction were being loaded into cargo holds. The Bruton hegemony had been the first to respond to humanity's challenge. Admiral Thexavor commanded the largest military force in the galaxy, and he had never backed down from a fight. Status report, he growled at his bridge crew aboard the dreadnought Worldbreaker. Sir, all battle groups have reported ready. We have 15,000 ships in attack formation. The humans cannot possibly stand against such a force. Thexavor's scales shifted to their aggressive red coloration. Then we will remind the galaxy why the Bruton hegemony has never lost a war signal. The fleet prepared to jump to human space. The Bruton fleet was massive enough to blot out stars' dreadnoughts, the size of cities, carrying enough firepower to crack planets' cruisers that could hunt down fleeing ships, fighters that swarmed like locusts. It was a force that had conquered 100 worlds. They jumped to the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a few dozen human ships cowering behind their planet's defenses. Instead, they found something that made even Bruton warriors question their sanity. The human fleet was waiting for them in perfect formation. Thousands of ships arranged in geometric patterns that hurt to look at, directly vessels that seemed to bend light around themselves, weapons that registered as pure energy on sensors. Sir, the sensor operator's voice was shaking. I'm reading impossible power signatures. Some of these ships are showing output levels equivalent to stellar cores. Admiral Thexavor stared at the display. The human fleet was smaller than his, but the energy readings were off the charts. Open a channel to the human flagship. The main screen showed the bridge of a human warship. Admiral Marcus Webb stood calmly in the center, surrounded by officers who looked like they were trying not to laugh. Admiral Thexavor, welcome to the Sol system. I'm Admiral Webb of the Terran Defense Force. You seem to be lost. This is human space. Thexavor's claws extended involuntarily. Human Admiral, you're outnumbered. 15-1 surrender now, and we may be merciful. Webb smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made predators nervous. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but we'll have to decline. You see, humans have this saying, quantity has a quality all its own. Unfortunately for you, we also have this other saying, quality beats quantity every time. Your ships cannot possibly match Bruton firepower, human. Our weapons have reduced planets to slag. That's impressive, Admiral, Webb replied. Our weapons unmake matter at the quantum level. Would you like a demonstration? Before Thexavor could respond, one of the human ships fired a single beam at an asteroid roughly the size of a small moon. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving behind empty space. Impossible, Thexavor whispered. What kind of weapon was that? Oh, that was just our mining laser, Admiral, Webb said casually. We use it to clear navigation hazards. Would you like to see what our actual weapons can do? The Bruton fleet was in chaos. Admiral Thexavor could hear his captains demanding orders. Some wanted to attack immediately, others were advising retreat. None of them understood how humans had developed technology so far beyond anything in the galaxy. Admiral Webb, Thexavor said slowly, perhaps we can discuss terms. Terms are simple, Admiral, Webb replied. Turn your fleet around, go home, and never come back to human space. If you do that, everyone lives. If you don't, well, let's just say you really don't want to find out what Plan B looks like. Thexavor looked at his tactical display, at the impossible human ships, at the empty space where an asteroid used to be, at the calm confidence of the human admiral, who was outnumbered 15-1 and acting like he held all the cards. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Thexavor gave the order to retreat. News of the Bruton withdrawal spread across the galaxy. Within hours, the largest military force in known space had been turned away by a human fleet, 1/15th its size, without a shot being fired. Species that had lived in fear of Bruton might for centuries suddenly began to ask questions. On the trade world of Nexus 7, representatives from a dozen species gathered in secret. They were all minor powers barely worth notice by the Confederation, but together they represented billions of beings who were tired of being ignored. Ambassador Cathalauren of the Severian Republic spoke first, her reptilian features showing the scars of old battles. The humans have shown us something important. The Confederation is not invincible. They can be challenged. But at what cost? Asked Trade Minister Velkoth of the Merchant Guilds. The humans may have won this confrontation, but they have also made enemies of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Have they? Ambassador Cathalauren replied. Or have they simply revealed what many of us have always known, that the Confederation maintains power through fear, not strength? The discussion continued through the night as representatives shared stories of Confederation oppression, of worlds stripped bare by Zephyrian corporations, of species rendered extinct by Krextai hive expansion, of governments toppled by Brutan intervention. By dawn, they had reached a decision. The Nexus Accord was born that day, an alliance of minor species who agreed to support each other against Confederation pressure. They couldn't match human military power, but they could do something almost as dangerous. They could stop cooperating. Within a week, shipping lanes controlled by Accord species were closed to Confederation vessels. Mining operations were shut down. Trade agreements were canceled. Suddenly, the vast Confederation war machine found itself running short of the resources it needed to function. High Counselor Krixatal of the Krextai clicked his mandibles in frustration as he reviewed the reports. These minor species dare to defy us. They forget that the Krextai collective has consumed entire star systems. His aide, a younger Krextai named Krixavan, chirped nervously. High Counselor, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans seem willing to discuss terms. Krixatal's compound eyes focused on the younger insect. Negotiation? We do not negotiate with prey species. We consume them. The collective will show these humans what happens to species that threaten the natural order. The Krextai had ruled through biological superiority for millennia. They were stronger, faster, more numerous than most species. Their hive minds could coordinate millions of individuals into perfect unity. They had never met an enemy they couldn't overwhelm through sheer numbers. The Krextai war fleet that assembled was unlike anything seen in galactic history. 50,000 ships crewed by billions of warrior drones, a swarm that could strip a solar system bare in days. They moved toward human space like a plague of locusts, devouring everything in their path. They never made it to Earth. The human response was swift and surgical. Small groups of ships appeared throughout Krextai space, targeting not military installations, but something much more important, the breeding worlds, where Krextai queens produced new generations of drones. The attacks were precisely calculated to cause maximum psychological impact. Without unnecessary casualties, human ships would appear, disable the orbital defenses, and then broadcast a simple message. Withdraw your fleets from human space, or the next visit won't be so friendly. High Counselor Krixatal received the reports in his private chamber aboard the hive ship Eternal Swarm. His compound eyes registered disbelief as he processed the information. They dare threaten our breeding worlds. He clicked to his aide. Do they think the collective fears their empty threats? Krixavan's mandibles clicked nervously. High Counselor, the humans have proven they can reach any world in Krextai space. Their stealth technology is beyond our ability to detect. Perhaps we should consider their terms. Never, the collective has never retreated from prey species. We will show them the true meaning of swarm warfare. But Krixatal's certainty was shaken when he received the next report. Human ships had appeared at the breeding world of Krixatar Prime. They had disabled the defenses, captured the planetary communication arrays, and then done something that horrified every Krextai who heard about it. They had negotiated directly with the queens. For the first time in Krextai history, the breeding females had spoken to outsiders. They had listened to human proposals for peaceful coexistence. They had agreed to consider alternatives to the collective's total war strategy. The implications were staggering. If the queens could be influenced, if the hive mind could be divided, then the collective itself might fracture. High Counselor Krixatal ordered an immediate attack on the human negotiation teams. But when his forces arrived, they found the breeding world defended not just by human ships, but by newly awakened Krextai queens, who had decided they preferred independence to serving the collective. The civil war that followed consumed the Krextai Empire within months. Billions of drones found themselves choosing between loyalty to the old collective and allegiance to queens who promised a new way of life. The Zephyrian Confederation watched their allies tear themselves apart and finally began to understand what they were truly facing. Humanity hadn't just built better weapons. They had become experts at finding and exploiting the weaknesses in their enemies' societies. High Counselor HFY called for an emergency session of the Confederation Council. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were facing an existential threat. Honored counselors, he began his translucent form pulsing with agitation. We face a crisis unlike any in our history. The human species has revealed capabilities that threaten the very foundation of our civilization. The chamber was less crowded than usual. Many species had withdrawn their representatives as the political situation deteriorated. Others were openly questioning their loyalty to the Confederation. "What do you propose, High Counselor?" asked Ambassador Veltani of the Crystalline Hegemony. "We have tried military force. The Bruton fleet was turned away without firing a shot. We have tried economic pressure, but our trade partners have joined this Nexus Accord. We have tried divide and conquer, but the humans seem able to turn our own allies against us." HFY's form darkened. "There is one option remaining. We have weapons that we have never used, technologies that we have kept secret. For emergencies, the humans have forced us to consider the unthinkable." A chill went through the chamber. Every species present knew what HFY was referring to: the planet killers. The system destroyers, the weapons so terrible that the Confederation had agreed never to use them. High Counselor, Ambassador Veltani's crystalline form rang with harmonics of distress. "Those weapons are forbidden even by our own laws. Their use would destroy everything we have built. Better that than allowing upstart humans to tear down 3 millennia of civilization," HFY replied. "I call for a formal vote authorization for the use of Category 7 weapons against human targets." The vote was closer than anyone expected. Of the 47 species represented, only 26 voted in favor. It was enough to pass the resolution, but barely. Within hours, the decision was transmitted to military commands across Confederation space. Ancient weapons were pulled from their storage vaults, devices that could turn stars into supernovas, that could collapse space-time itself, that could erase entire solar systems from existence. But the humans had been listening. Sarah Chen sat in the command center of the Terran Intelligence Agency, watching the intercepted communications with a mixture of sadness and determination around her. The best minds in human space were analyzing every piece of data, every tactical possibility, every potential response. "Director, they're really going to do it," her deputy Marcus Torres said quietly. "They're going to use planet killers against civilian targets." Sarah nodded grimly. "Then it's time for Omega Protocol." The Omega Protocol was humanity's final contingency. The plan they hoped they would never need to implement it had been developed in absolute secrecy by a team that included humanity's best military strategists, most brilliant scientists, and most creative thinkers. "Are you sure, Director, once we activate Omega, there's no going back?" Sarah looked at the tactical display showing Confederation fleets moving to implement genocide against human worlds. "Marcus, they made the choice when they decided our children's lives were acceptable losses. Give the order." Across human space, sleeper agents who had been in place for years activated simultaneously. They weren't soldiers or spies. They were engineers, scientists, technicians, people who had spent the last decade working on Confederation projects. The sabotage was perfectly coordinated. Every major Confederation military facility, every important research installation, every critical infrastructure hub was hit at exactly the same moment. Weapons that had been built to destroy solar systems simply stopped working. Shields that could deflect stellar bombardment flickered and died. Communication networks that connected thousands of worlds went silent. But that was just the beginning. The real surprise was what happened next. Every single Confederation facility discovered that their computer systems had been compromised for years. Human programmers had been quietly inserting code into Confederation networks, learning their secrets, copying their technologies, preparing for this moment. In a single day, humanity gained access to 3,000 years of Confederation scientific development. They learned how to build planet killers, how to manipulate stellar evolution, how to create artificial wormholes. Technology that should have taken centuries to develop was suddenly available. High Counselor HFY received the report in his private chambers. His translucent form flickered with disbelief as he processed the information. "They did what?" he whispered. Sir, the humans have somehow gained access to Category 7 weapon technology. They're building planet killers of their own, and their construction rate suggests they'll have a functional arsenal within days. HFY felt his form begin to destabilize with panic. That's impossible. Those technologies are secured by quantum encryption. Sir, they didn't break our encryption. They've been copying our data for years. Every time we hired human contractors, every time we allowed human observers, every time we accepted human students, they were learning from us. The full scope of human infiltration was staggering. They had been planning this for over a decade, quietly placing their people in positions where they could learn Confederation secrets, slowly building a complete picture of galactic civilization's technological base. But the worst revelation was yet to come. Sir, there's more. The humans are broadcasting a message to every world in Confederation space. The main display activated, showing Sarah Chen standing in what appeared to be a human command center. Behind her screens showed the construction of massive weapon systems, the kind of devices that could sterilize entire star systems. Citizens of the galaxy, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the quantum communication network. My name is Sarah Chen, and I represent the Terran Federation for 12 years. We have tried to find a peaceful place in galactic civilization for 12 years. We have accepted your rules, followed your laws, submitted to your judgment. Her expression hardened. Yesterday, your leaders voted to commit genocide against our worlds. They have chosen to use weapons that violate every principle of civilized warfare. They have decided that the complete destruction of humanity is preferable to accepting us as equals. The camera, pulled back to show more of the command center, massive holographic displays showed the true scope of human military preparation fleets that numbered in the tens of thousands, weapons that made Confederation technology look like toys. So let me be perfectly clear about something, Sarah continued. If you want to exterminate humanity, you're welcome to try, but you won't succeed, and in the process you'll discover something very important about human nature. We don't just fight back, we fight back harder. The display showed targeting data, every major Confederation world, every military installation, every government facility, all marked as potential targets. Your leaders have Category 7 weapons that can destroy star systems, Sarah said calmly. So do we now, and unlike your leaders, we have absolutely nothing left to lose. The message ended with a simple countdown, 7 days until humanity would begin implementing what they called reciprocal annihilation, the complete destruction of Confederation civilization in response to the planned genocide. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would blink first. On worlds across Confederation space, beings who had never questioned their government's authority suddenly found themselves asking difficult questions. Did they really want to risk universal destruction to maintain political control over one species? Was their way of life worth a war that might end civilization itself? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Cathalarin of the Severian Republic had spent the last 3 days traveling from world to world, meeting with leaders who were beginning to question their loyalty to the Confederation. She found that the humans weren't the only species tired of being treated as inferiors. The Confederation has existed for 3,000 years, she told the assembled representatives of 47 species, but it has never represented true unity. It has represented the domination of the strong over the weak, the old over the young, the established over the innovative. The meeting was taking place on a neutral world far from Confederation surveillance. Dozens of species were represented, from the mighty Altarian Republic to the humble fungi collective. The humans have shown us something important, Cathalarin continued. They've shown us that the Confederation can be challenged, that the old order can be changed, that we don't have to accept being junior partners in our own galaxy. Trade Minister Velkoth of the Merchant Guilds spoke next. But what are you proposing, Ambassador, that we join the humans in their war against our own government? I'm proposing something more radical than that, Cathalarin replied. I'm proposing that we replace the Confederation entirely. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Representatives from dozens of species stared at her as if she had suggested they all commit collective suicide. Replace it with what? Demanded General Thorax of the Kitnus Defense Force. The humans have proven they can destroy us, but can they govern us? Before Cathalarin could answer, a new voice entered the conversation. The holographic projector in the center of the chamber activated, showing Sarah Chen's face. Actually, General, we have a better idea, Sarah said. We don't want to govern anyone. We just want to be left alone to govern ourselves. The assembled representatives turned to stare at the projection. How had the humans accessed their secure communication network? Sarah smiled at their expressions. Did you really think we'd organize this meeting without knowing about it? We've been monitoring Confederation communications for years. We know exactly who's tired of being pushed around and who's ready for change. She gestured, and the display expanded to show a star map of the galaxy. Here's what we propose. The Confederation dissolves. Every species gets to choose their own path. Want to form alliances? Great. Want to trade? Wonderful. Want to explore the galaxy together? We're all for it, but no more central authority deciding what's best for everyone. No more three-species ruling council determining the fate of thousands of worlds. Admiral Zethkorn of the Aquatic Defense League's gills fluttered nervously. And if we refuse, if we choose to maintain the Confederation, then you maintain it without us, Sarah replied simply, and without anyone else who wants to leave. This isn't a conquest, Admiral. It's a divorce. The countdown continued. 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. On the 4th day, something unprecedented happened. The Velthari Crystalline Collective, one of the 3 founding species of the Confederation, announced their withdrawal from the Alliance. High Counselor Velnara's crystalline form rang with harmonic frequencies that translated to deep regret. For 3 millennia, we have participated in an alliance that began with noble intentions, but has become an instrument of oppression. We can no longer be part of a government that considers genocide an acceptable response to political disagreement. The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. If the Velthari were leaving, the Confederation was finished. Within hours, dozens of other species announced their own withdrawals. High Counselor Zex High found himself addressing an increasingly empty council chamber. Of the original 300-member species, less than 50 remained loyal to the Confederation. You are making a terrible mistake, he broadcast to the galaxy. Without the Confederation, there will be chaos, wars between species, economic collapse, the end of galactic civilization as we know it. The response came not from Sarah Chen, but from High Counselor Velanera herself. Counselor Zex High, we have had 3,000 years of your version of civilization, 3,000 years of species being conquered, enslaved, or driven to extinction because they didn't fit the Confederation's vision order. Perhaps it's time to try something different. On the 3rd day of the countdown, High Counselor Crixatal of the Crextai made a desperate final offer. Humans, he clicked through the quantum communication network, the collective offers terms. Withdraw your weapons, and we will grant you full autonomy within the Confederation structure. You will govern your own worlds, control your own military, make your own laws. Sarah Chen's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Counselor Crixatal, you're still not understanding the situation. We're not negotiating for better terms within your system. We're ending your system entirely. 2 days left. The Bruton hegemony made their own final attempt at maintaining the old order. Admiral Thexivore commanded the largest remaining military force in Confederation space, and he was determined to preserve Bruton dominance, even if it meant destroying everything else. If the galaxy chooses chaos over order, he growled to his assembled fleet commanders, then we will give them chaos, but we will survive it, and we will rebuild in our image. The Bruton fleet moved toward Earth, determined to break human resolve through the complete destruction of humanity's homeworld. It was a force of 8,000 ships, carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. They were met by the entire Terran Defense Force. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the Bruton hegemony's military power was broken forever. Admiral Thexivore's flagship drifted powerless in space, its crew alive but their ship completely disabled. Admiral Marcus Webb opened a communication channel to the defeated Bruton commander. Admiral Thexivore, this is Admiral Webb. Your fleet is disabled but intact. Your crews are alive and will remain so. This is your last chance to make a choice. Order your remaining forces to stand down, or watch us demonstrate why humans are considered apex predators. Thexivore's response was barely a whisper. How? How did you defeat us so easily? Because you're still thinking like conquerors, Webb replied. You're trying to win through brute force. We're fighting for our survival. That makes all the difference. One day left. High Counselor Zex High made a final desperate broadcast to the galaxy. Citizens of the Confederation, do not let the humans destroy 3 millennia of progress. Yes, there have been mistakes, injustices. But we can reform, we can change, we can build something better together. The response came from an unexpected source. The newly formed Galactic Cooperative, representing over 200 species who had withdrawn from the Confederation. And Ambassador Keth Lawrence spoke for the cooperative. High Counselor Zex High, you've had 3,000 years to reform. You've had countless opportunities to change. You've chosen oppression every time. The galaxy is ready to try something new. 0 days. Sarah Chen stood once again on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, but this time she wasn't alone. Representatives from dozens of species stood with her, watching as the last Confederation ships prepared to leave the station. High Counselor Zex High approached her, his translucent form dim with defeat. Human Sarah, he said quietly. What happens now? Sarah looked out at the stars, at the ships of 100 different species, preparing to chart their own courses through the galaxy. Now we find out what the galaxy looks like when everyone gets to choose their own path. Maybe it'll be chaos. Maybe some species will fight. Maybe some will isolate themselves. But it'll be their choice. She turned to face the defeated Zephyrian. For the first time in 3,000 years, every species in this galaxy gets to decide their own fate. That's not chaos, Counselor. That's freedom. High Counselor Zex High's form flickered one last time. And if you're wrong, if this experiment in freedom leads to destruction? Sarah smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a genuinely warm expression. Then at least we'll have failed on our own terms. The Confederation officially dissolved at midnight, Galactic Standard Time, and there was no ceremony, no formal declaration, no grand speeches. One moment there was a 3,000-year-old galactic government, and the next moment there wasn't. In the days that followed, the galaxy began to reshape itself. Some species formed new alliances based on mutual interests rather than imposed authority. Others chose isolation, focusing on developing their own worlds and cultures. A few attempted to maintain the old ways, but without the backing of Confederation military power, their efforts quickly collapsed. Humanity kept their word. They dismantled their planet-killer weapons, withdrew their fleets to defensive positions around human space, and opened diplomatic relations with any species that approached them peacefully. But they also kept their promise about what would happen to anyone who threatened human worlds. The few species that tested human resolve learned very quickly why evolution had made humans apex predators. 6 months after the Confederation's dissolution, Sarah Chen received a message that made her laugh for the first time in years. It was from High Counselor Zex High, or rather, former High Counselor Zex High. He was now serving as an ambassador for the newly reformed Zephyrian Republic, which had overthrown its own government and established a democratic system. Human Sarah, the message read, I wanted to thank you for showing us what we had become. The Zephyrian people are free for the first time in millennia, and while the transition has been difficult, we are finally governing ourselves rather than trying to govern others. Perhaps you were right. Perhaps freedom is worth the chaos. Sarah Chen smiled and dictated her response. Zex High, chaos is just another word for possibility, and possibility is what makes life worth living. She ended the message and looked out at the stars, where hundreds of species were writing their own stories for the first time in 3,000 years. Humanity had kept their promise. They had stopped playing nice, and the galaxy was better for it.